What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, so this is a video about Showtime Boxing having made an offer for Canelo Alvarez, the Golden Boy, to sign Canelo Alvarez, or to have Canelo Alvarez fight on the network. Something that you knew that was going to happen. Something that, to me, from the outside looking in, looks like the most obvious choice for a guy like Canelo. Also for a guy like Manny Pacquiao, people that have, established pay-per-view reputations and who make the type of money that you get from big pay-per-view shows. And, Canelo Alvarez also already had a lot of fights, had several fights with Showtime already. And there's a good number of middleweights over with Showtime, specifically the Charlos, and a bunch of 154 pounders, more than likely, that are going to wind up moving up to 160 pounds, eventually for Canelo Alvarez to fight and earn those real big paydays with. Steven Espinoza says, the Golden Boy knows Showtime very interested in Canelo. It's an article that came out this morning. Here's the gist of the quote. This is Steven Espinoza said, we've expressed interest, but they're taking their time. We've made our interest known, but it's not something we're going to be real upfront about in the press. We've made our communications directly to Golden Boy, and they know we're very interested, and we obviously have a history with Canelo. There's a range of free agents, and we think we are the most attractive platform in the sport. We have a proven track record in pay-per-view, and we've got the deepest stable of current fighters. We've got a proven track record in pay-per-view with HBO's departure. We're really the only party with a proven track record in pay-per-view, and the fights that we've been doing have been speaking for themselves. All right, so yeah, without a doubt, man. And I would be if it wasn't for the fact that this was Oscar De La Hoya, I would be surprised if Canelo Alvarez didn't sign with Showtime. But this is Oscar De La Hoya, and Oscar De La Hoya seems to me at times to be where he can be pretty petty. But petty and pocketbooks, don't go along with one another, especially when, you have a guy that's earning $30 million, $25-30 million a fight, and looking to go over to, and the only other options are streaming services. And like I've said in other videos, I don't see where ESPN would be willing to pay a guy $30 million or $60 million for 2 fights, right? That is a huge part of their budget. ESPN has in the past had pay-per-view, but I do believe it was a pay-per-view fight for Manny Pacquiao way back. Whatever the last pay-per-view he did after, I'm thinking it might be after the Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight. Whatever the one was, it wasn't on HBO after HBO let Manny Pacquiao go, or wouldn't put him on pay-per-view. I think it was a little bit after he made some controversial statements about some controversial statements and HBO wanted to distance themselves from them. And also after he was used up and had lost to Mayweather, they had him on some pay-per-view card over there at ESPN. But it doesn't appear as if ESPN has any interest in, or it has any plans, at least that I've seen, putting on more pay-per-view cards. So, and honestly, I don't know who they're going to fight, that any really good middleweight that's over there at ESPN. Now, you also have another soon to be free agent who was signed to, in Danny Jacobs, who was signed to HBO. And man, if this thing didn't fly in the face of Daniel Jacobs, I don't know what did. When he signed with HBO, right? HBO was going to make him a star, right? You remember that when Danny Jacobs was going to be made a star by HBO, and that's why he signed with Matchroom. And now for those guys to shut it down, and I do believe though that the last fight for HBO is going to be Danny Jacobs versus Deverenchenko for the IBF title, but that is a far shot from the Gennady Golovkin rematch that he wanted, or the Canelo Alvarez fight that I'm sure pay-per-view fight that I'm sure he wanted as well. So depending on where Canelo Alvarez goes, it'll be interesting to see whether or not Danny Jacobs will have the ability to go to Showtime as well, or whether his promotional deal that he has with with Eddie Hearn will push him to the zone. Man, dude, that's what you get, man. That's what you get. So anyway, man, we'll see what happens, man. Also, I think the same thing is going on with Jarrell Miller. For a U.S. fighter to be fighting on the zone, when he could have signed with HB, when he could have signed and could be over on Showtime. So for like Jarrell Miller, there are several heavyweight fights that could take place over on Showtime, from Luis Ortiz to Joe Joyce, Adam Konecki. They're actually doing Showtime and PBC are actually building up, quite a little arsenal of heavyweights, man. Over on the Showtime side, Tyson Fury as well, of course, Deontay Wilder. But those guys decided to go with Eddie Hearn, man, and we'll see what happens with that. But there's a little guys too over there at HBO. It's going to be interesting to see where the guys who are fighting on HBO go. Like, where's Chocolatito? I know Chocolatito is building his name back up, but where's Chocolatito going to go? Where's Soroy Vasai going to go? It's going to be interesting. I do think that for some of the smaller guys and some of the like people who are based in Europe, I do think that, DAZN might be a good look for them, because if they're on DAZN, then they might also be able to fight on Sky, or they might be able to fight, in the World Boxing Super Series or something like that, which would also allow them to have where their primary visibility is in Europe. But for somebody whose primary fan base is in the United States, I don't see DAZN being the way to go. ESPN for mid-level fighters and upper, and like one guy in Terrence Crawford, for example, with ESPN, Terrence Crawford and Vasyl Lomachenko really are, and maybe Jose Ramirez as well, really are they are the top fighters on ESPN. And I'm sure, at least this is what Bo Max said in his interview and all that those guys have been offered good amount of money to fight on ESPN. But if they ever want to, kind of pop out the top and do pay-per-view, I just don't see how that's going to be real. I don't see how that's going to be a real big option for them. So, Canelo, who obviously is the biggest pay-per-view star, active pay-per-view star in boxing, and Manny Pacquiao, who was formerly, one of the top pay-per-view stars in boxing. Showtime to me seems like it is the most logical option because of the pay-per-view, because of the number of fighters and potential fights that they have there. Also because they can do it definitely with Manny Pacquiao, they can do it without a promoter. Canelo Alvarez doesn't seem to me like he's going to be the type of guy that's going to want to ditch Oscar De La Hoya and do his own promotional thing. But the pay-per-view there really does set that up for him. Now, the last thing, the barrier, again, like I said, for Oscar De La Hoya and the Showtime thing is the fact that Oscar De La Hoya is suing Al Heyman. And so I think at the very least for that to go, Oscar De La Hoya is going to have to let that go, let that whole monopoly nonsense go. If he hasn't already, my understanding is that he was still appealing the decision by the court to try to, where they basically denied his claim, was like, no, none of basically all points in your argument, you failed to prove all of the different claims that he made. He failed to prove them. And having read the decision, it was almost like they laughed him out of the room. So he's going to have to drop that. If he drops that and Canelo insists on it, then he can be there. Now, if he winds up being there and that would also say, okay, well, what happens with Gennady Golovkin? Because Gennady, if they want to rematch with, if Canelo Alvarez wants a rematch with Gennady Golovkin, they're going to want that to be on pay-per-view as well. And it would seem that both people would have to sign with the same network. And I mean, everything to me points to Showtime, but, you know, there's a lot of things in the world that just, you know, hey, man, I've been wrong before, I'll be wrong again. And so like my mind says these guys should go to Showtime, but my heart says, or rather I guess that's the right way. My mind says that they should go, but at the same time, just knowing the parties involved telling me that he's going to wind up going somewhere else. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see, you know, if these guys do go to Showtime, man, that makes it even more likely that we get really great fights. If they don't go to Showtime, then, you know, we're probably not going to see the fights that a lot of people want to see. Like, I want to see the Charlos versus Canelo. I want to see Danny Jacobs versus the Charlos. And all of that stuff would be a lot easier if these guys were all on the same network. But we'll see how it pans out. And with that, I'm out. Peace.